We're going to dive into raising godly sons, raising the future lions of this world. We need to be teaching our kids what godly dating is and what godly marriage is.
Yeah.
We need to model that for them. We need to teach them how to respect women.
Talk to your children about these things. There is nobody here on earth that can teach them better than you.
If you're not parent enough to have this conversation, somebody else will teach them this.
It's about being in the Word with God yourself and with your spouse of, God, we can't do this with our own understanding and our own strength. We need your strength. We need your wisdom.
Raising sons is an incredible gift, and it's extremely rewarding in so many aspects, but let's not understate what the enemy is trying to do, which is destroy your sense of who you are as a father, because he knows if he got you, he's got your sons, and he's got the future.
Your blended family has a 100% chance of success when you do it God's way. We're Blended Kingdom Families, and we want to provide biblical resources to heal and restore families with a message of hope for the next generation.
Hey guys, welcome back to the BKF podcast. We are super pumped to be with you today, and we're going to be bringing just one of the most important topics that we've brought in a long time. And we're excited. Before we jump in, make sure that you like, share, comment. You're going to want to mark this podcast and rewatch it or send it to your friends, because today we're going to dive into raising godly sons.
And the importance
Yes.
of this. Yeah.
So raising the future lions of this world. And it's something we are very passionate about. Obviously, our situation is unique to this because we have 4 sons.
Yeah.
And so we get to live in this crazy world of raising boys who are starting to understand what manhood is and who are starting to get their little shots of testosterone. And so it's fun watching you, and it's fun being me in these situations.
Yeah. Well, and I know that not everybody listening has a son or a bonus son. And so I would say to those community members that are watching and listening, understand that your daughters will get married to someone someday, and that that is so important, and what they represent and who, like the fabric of their being and the things that they've experienced and what their faith means to them and them being a man of God. That is so important for your daughters and for and just for the future. And so, I'm excited. And yes, being a boy mom of 4 sons, we have an adult son who's in the Army right now. And we have 3 littles, and
they're not so little anymore.
Well, they're 5th, 4th, and 3rd grade.
Yeah.
But it's been just a beautiful journey, and I think understanding the importance. I remember Case was probably about 2 years old, and so say we had at the time it was 2, 3, and 4, and I remember we had a Bible study group come over for a Christmas party. And one of my Bible study group members had brought his wife, and this was my first time meeting her because it was just him in the Bible study group, and this was a Bible study group for leadership. And I remember when they walked into our home, she was just kind of like looking around, taking it in, and I could tell like she was just thinking, she was processing. And the more and more we began to talk, and I was telling her about our family, and I remember she just stopped me and she said, Vanessa, she said, God doesn't just give anybody boys. And she said, and God doesn't just give anybody 4 boys. And she was like, you are raising, and she said, the future lions of tribes, of like nations, and really was like taking it back to scripture. And I think the weight of that set with me, and just the entrustment of that, and what, going through my graduate program and doing research and being in ministry, and specifically being in marriage ministry, and understanding the importance of the father figure and godly men and what that represents and how that is important for the future generations to come and the society in which we live in, where literally the male men are being attacked, fathers are being attacked, our youth is being attacked, and how and why this is so important.
Yeah. I could, and I probably will here shortly, get my emotions up high on this, but I want to start with some practical things.
Sure.
Because again, I want to understand that this podcast is about trying to educate and trying to encourage, and give practical advice because some people are like, hey, I want,
Sure.
but I don't really know how.
How, yeah.
So we're going to start with one is just modeling your own faith. I think, again, and this is what everything from what we say to what we do to where we're going, it is modeling a strong foundation of faith. A pastor friend said this, and it always has stuck with me. But again, he made this point. He said, hey, if you're bringing your kids to church so that I can teach them about Jesus, that's not the thing. That's not what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And let me rephrase, let me put context behind that. What he meant by it is saying, if I'm the only one who's teaching your kid about Jesus, then you've missed as a father. And that's really difficult for a lot of fathers to acknowledge. I think we're really ingrained in our brain to say our job is to make sure there's, food on the table, or that was kind of like back in the 40s. I think today it's more like the Wi-Fi still works. I mean, we're looking at these in practical terms, of, and then we think our job is finished. No, our job as a father is to introduce them to their Heavenly Father. That's the number one job we have as a father, is to make sure they understand who the Heavenly Father is. And then we lay out the groundwork for their entire life of how to act. But we have to model that in our own self, and then we have to start teaching them early, or just start teaching them. I don't care if they're a teenager or they're 2 years old. We want to start teaching our kids from a father's perspective how to do that. And moms are great at a lot of these things too. Let me stress this. I can understand that in a lot of marriages, the wife generally could be the more spiritual one, or the one who's more in tune to that. And I think there's different methods and methodologies. I have a much different way of teaching my sons about faith than Vanessa does. And that's okay. But I definitely want to make sure that I'm mirroring a strong foundation of faith, and I'm also encouraging their spiritual growth.
Absolutely. And I think on a practical level, this looks like, we started doing this about 2 years ago. We just wanted to be more intentional. And Scott was like, I'm going to start literally reading the Bible with them every single night. And so when we go to bed at night now, all the boys go into one of the brothers' rooms. We kind of, rotate. But we all go in there, and he opens up their little Bible, and we read a story. And then
I actually like the student Bible. It makes a lot more sense to me. I know I'm probably the practical one, but I read their student Bible, and I'm like, oh, that's what that means. Because sometimes the Bible is tough to read.
Sure. But, you ask them questions, and it's been really cool to even see, like, when we're talking, we're reading about parables or things. Hey, guys, remember what we read last night? Like, what did that say? What are you doing to your brother right now? Let's remember. But that's just one thing that we've done to be more intentional. One thing that I do, like we just do on the regular, we love worship and Christian music. And we are a big Christian rap family, okay? Like, I know some people are in tune with that, but the boys love it. Some people don't like it, but we love listening to, Christian rap music, and the boys love it. And it's a lot of their hype music for their football.
Yeah.
But that's just something like we love to listen to in the car. And, we take turns. Okay, what do y'all want to listen to? We want to listen to Forrest Frank Lemonade or Forrest Frank Up, or, whether it's Lecrae or whatever. And, we do our affirmations on the way to school. I mean, there's so many little things that we can do where we can implement, scripture and remind them of Jesus. And I think the beautiful thing, y'all, is like God will give you those little moments to show you that you're modeling and your obedience to show them the faith. And when you're teaching them early, literally the first week of school, Grayson brought home a piece of paper, and it was a heart. And it had the heart sectioned off, and there was a circle in the middle, and they had to write the things that were important to them. And in the very center, I was so proud. Jason, he had Jesus.
Yeah.
And I just was like, okay, thank you, Lord. we're doing something right. So I say all this to say, like, yes, start with a strong foundation in faith. Model that to them. Teach that to them. And, you will begin to see the fruit of that as they continue to grow.
Yeah. Teaching responsibility and integrity. we're in this stage of life
Yes.
where, let's just be honest, little white lies are probably happening more than we would like.
Yeah.
And I think, again, we're in that stage of watching our kids who are wanting to avoid punishment
Yeah.
versus taking responsibility because they're making mistakes. And so my big thing right now is teaching them about, what integrity is, understanding that your word is your most important asset as a man. So when you say you're going to do something, do it. And that's just, again, we're not asking for perfection in our sons, but we're trying to model a concept that says, this is important. This is very important. Understanding that they have a responsibility and there's also accountability. So discipline is a huge thing. And I think parents, especially in 2025, we've gotten to the point where we're a little soft on the discipline side. I was having a conversation with two moms last night, and we were talking about the subject of discipline. And I remember when I grew up, and I think people, we underestimate this. I can tell the stories of, I remember my grandmother and her wooden spoon, and it wasn't soft. Like, it was across the knuckles. I can tell stories about my own father and the belt. And we seem to detach this from the concept that made us who we are, yet we are unwilling to do that to our children because, and I'm not promoting, physical abuse by any stretch, but I'm saying a strong level of discipline is needed. If you want to raise godly sons, you better be ready to discipline because they need to learn that. And as parents and as fathers, we need to get into these modes. Taking their phone away or even giving them a phone, and I'll touch that in a minute, or taking their video, that is not enough. I mean, we need to be disciplined. We need to understand what it means when we say we want to fear God. They need to fear God. They need to understand that there are severe consequences for those actions. And taking responsibility and teaching responsibility and understanding what integrity is, you cannot underteach that.
Yeah. Well, and I think discipline can, there's so many different views on this. Like, do we spank? Do we not spank? Do we, what that looks like? I think, guys, again, it goes back to prayer and asking God in the moment, because what God may say you do for your kids is not what God is going to say to do for somebody else's kids. But discipline, and I think that a lot of blended families run into this because it's who disciplines and how hard and, and all of that. And, not doing physical discipline if you're the step parent. And, so again, you have to be very discerning. You need to be very wise and seek out support and help in this area if it's not there. But like you said, Scott, teaching responsibility, integrity, doing the right thing when nobody's watching and holding yourself accountable for when those things are wrong. And I can tell you, I think a part of, I'm not a man, but when we've had this conversation and around our oldest, it's like, I think for when your sons are starting to become young adults and young men, when they can foster accountability, understand it, and hold themselves accountable to their action, that is a part of becoming a man. And I will tell you that if you miss that, if they miss that, that is a huge step that can hinder them.
It will hinder them. It has hindered an entire generation of young men. And let's be honest, to where we are today, we're talking about raising little kids. There's a whole generation of kids that didn't get this, and they need these lessons. We also have to build their emotional strength. And I'm going to touch in an area where it could be a little bit more sensitive. I think part of building emotional strength is not giving them easy emotional outlets. So let me explain what I mean by that. I'm talking specifically about a lot of technology. Building emotional strength is the ability to stand in a storm and understand what you are, who you are, and what you're going to do next. That's emotional strength. It's the ability to understand how and when to be silent. It's the ability to understand and look at people and understand what they're going through. That's emotional strength. And one of the biggest challenges that we are giving sons is access to too much technology that gives them a hiding place emotionally. So they're watching other people be emotional, and they're resisting their own concept of how to be emotional. And by the way, they're learning emotional concepts from other people.
Yeah.
And I point that to technology because I do believe that's one of the biggest drivers in emotional insecurity and emotional immaturity.
I think that emotional strength that you're talking about and emotional maturity, again, I think that this is something that fathers, you have, like there's a modeling that takes place in that. And I would also say moms too. Like there was a study that, and it's the Journal of Marriage and Family, found that men who had positive, respectful relationships with their mothers were more likely to have healthy, respectful relationships with women as adults. And so, you know, this isn't just about fathers speaking into men. Like mothers, we have such a calling and ministry in this. And your role as a mother to your sons is so powerful because what your relationship with your son is often what they're going to reflect as, this is how I should be treated. This is how I should treat women. This is the way I should look at women. This is the way I should think about women. This is the way that I should speak to women. So if you're constantly yelling at your sons, belittling your sons, if you're not speaking into them and pointing out their strengths and pointing out the things that the gold within them, loving on them, touching them, giving them secure affection, giving them praise. These are all the things that moms can do in a way that dads, it's not that dads can't, but it's just differently.
Yeah.
And that speaks to their identity. It speaks to who they are, and it speaks to their mind and outlook of what they want and what they desire in a future wife and spouse, and even, you know, female relationships, friendships.
Yeah. Never underestimate how you are pouring into the emotional development of your children. And there's so many different areas that you can do that and be absolutely critical in those ways. But also be strong and be resilient in what you know is right and what you know is going to work.
Yeah.
Don't give in to weak parenting in these moments. I love that you talked about the role of the wife, and I think that we've talked about this in so many podcasts as we model behavior. But we have to teach, if we want to raise godly sons, we've got to teach them how to respect women and relationships. So let me be really clear here.
Yes.
I'm so involved with schools and different things. And one of the areas that it's almost comical to me, and in a way that I'm like laughing in a way that says, man, how are we so foolish to miss this? But we don't teach kids how to date, how to be married. We need to be teaching our kids what godly dating is and what godly marriage is.
Yeah.
We need to model that for them. We need to teach them how to respect women. I will say, I see how boys are. I was that kid. I grew up in a very dysfunctional home that did not value that at all. And I will say, when we talk about, and our kids are getting to the age where like, oh, this girl's cute. Or one of our kids said, I got to get a girlfriend this year. And so we're starting to get into this ages where they're starting to notice the opposite, noticing girls. And we're talking about, well, how do you speak to them? Do you know how to, say something nice to them?
Yeah.
Do you know how to give them a gift? Do you know what, what is right and what is wrong? But we have to talk about these things.
Like even teaching boys how to respect women, but having open conversations about sexuality, the importance of honoring our bodies, women's bodies, and honoring God with their bodies. And so we have people that reach out. It's like, when should we have the conversation about sex or, puberty and things like that? I will say, like, we have already had the puberty talk with the boys. I'm a registered nurse, and so
That's a funny one.
I'm pretty practical, and I whipped out that anatomy and physiology book, and I was like, all right, boys, these are men's parts, these are women's parts. And they had a lot of questions, and yes, there were a lot of laughs, but they they have already gotten to an age, you guys, in elementary school, there are talks at the lunch table about these things already. And so I say this with the intent of talk to your children about these things. There is nobody here on earth that can teach them better than you.
Yeah.
And you don't want that to be lunch table talk, locker room talk. Let that come from you and from a godly and biblical perspective.
Yeah. And as as your sons, we have younger sons that are not quite in this, but you may have like junior high sons or early high school sons. And you need to teach them, like, just because they can or just because they're given ability doesn't mean they should. So let's talk specifically about talking about sex and talking about relationships. We understand that young girls and young boys are very different in these ways, and their motivations are different. And I do understand that even young women, they're much more aggressive than they probably were in years past. And I'm trying to teach my sons, or I will be teaching them, that just because you can or just because you think you should doesn't mean you actually should. And understand and teach them about soul ties, teaching them about purity, teaching them about respecting their own body, that, hey, this is the temple that God's given me, and I'm giving this as a gift to my wife, not as something that can just be served out, at a $2.99 buffet. These are the things that, again, if you don't speak that, I can assure you that somebody else will speak the opposite. This is not a game that you're going to win if you don't proactively play. Meaning, if you don't have these conversations, if you're not, I'll use the term, if you're not parent enough to have this conversation, somebody else will teach them this. And so we are going into this, in true our fashion of, we're not, being super hard, but there's a lot to lose here.
Yeah. And, you guys, we're going to be wrapping up, but I think all of this goes into the concept of, when we're raising our sons and bonus sons to be, these godly, God-fearing, strong men, there's so much to take in to that. There's so much to just consider. And it's just about being proactive. It's about being in the Word with God yourself and with your spouse of, God, we can't do this with our own understanding and our own strength. We need your strength. We need your wisdom. And we need your guidance in this. And so as you're modeling and teaching this and raising godly sons, make sure that you are also connecting with the Father yourself and seeking His wisdom and His guidance in this area.
Yeah. Let me end by encouraging the dads. Number one, God built you for this. This is what you were created for. As He was knowingly going to give you a son, He's created you for this moment, and He's given you all the authority that you could possibly possess in raising your son. So be confident in that. Be confident in what you know is right. Don't let the world tell you what you can, should, or cannot say. You need to speak truth, speak absolute life to your sons. Don't miss an opportunity to be in that, or to have those teachable moments. Raising sons is an incredible gift, and it's extremely rewarding in so many aspects, but let's not understate what the enemy is trying to do, which is destroy your sense of who you are as a father, because he knows if he got you, he's got your sons, and he's got the future. So take this opportunity to do that, and we hope that this has at least opened your eyes to this and has also encouraged you. And as
Before you go any further, I want to say something.
Yeah.
I want to speak to the single moms here who are doing this alone. And this is not just for husbands. I understand the importance of that, but wives also. I've been a single mom, and I understand the weight of that, and that this is all on you. And I understand what it feels like to not have that strength and that male voice, so to speak, but understand that God saw your situation and saw all of that from the beginning. And He has, in the season that you're in, He has equipped you, and He has instilled something within you to be able to speak to your son and to be that example. And so don't let the enemy or any person or thing tell you different, and that you are not capable, that you are not worthy, and that you are not strong enough. to be able to do that. And so I just want to speak that and leave that with you. And moms, never underestimate the power that you have in the lives of your sons and the importance of what your voice has in their life, because it is a ministry and it matters.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So we're going to close today with the way we've been doing it is we have pose a question, and I'd love for you to go to the comments and provide your answers. But here's my question to you. What do you do as a family or as a father or as a single mother? What do you do that is helping the kingdom by raising godly sons? I want to know what you're doing practically. And as you answer, you'll see the comments of encouragement or the comments of that is a great idea. We are really pushing towards our community getting more involved with us. And one way we do that is by answering these questions.
Yes. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope that you are blessed in all that you do.
You guys take care.
Hey friends, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we talk about more blended family topics. Be blessed in all that you do, and remember, nothing will be impossible with God.